Hello, this is Abby.
Dear Abbey, this is gonna be a long one.
Oh boy.
Dear Abbey, how do you tell the difference between a new exciting crush and a rebound?
Does it matter?
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Dear Abbey.
Welcome to our little corner of the internet. This is the Dear Abbey podcast. I hope you stay and hang out with us. See you in a sec. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Dear Abbey. I am your humble host. My name is Abby. Welcome back. Today, we are kind of jumping around a lot, per usual. I'm working out a lot of feelings, per usual. How many feelings can one person work through every month, every week? A lot, apparently. I have a couple things that I wanted to talk about, mainly that we are doing better than we think. And by we, I mean us individually, you, and I think just humans in general. We get a lot of, it can feel very doomsday, and it can feel very like everyone sucks, or that everyone's bad, or that's all you see. But humans really are pretty incredible at what we can do and who we can be, and I just wanted to focus on that. I wanted to also share one of my favorite OCD tips, which is letting time pass or procrastinating, doing a compulsion. And then we're going to do a Dear Abbey. And then that's going to be it for today's episode. Fine. What feelings am I working through, you ask? Let me tell you. Let me open up my brain waves to you really fast. I work a normal 9 to 5, right? I'm in a very corporate environment, and sometimes I don't mind it, and it's just a normal day at the office, and I get my stuff done, get there, get my work done, get out, done, decompress at home, have a great day. Sometimes, if there's too many meetings, I get a little bit overwhelmed emotionally. There's just a lot of politics when it comes to corporate environments. There's a lot of hush hush. There's a lot of weird vibes, animosity between people and teams. As much as I want to fake and act like it's like totally fine and I'm totally strong enough to enjoy it and just not care or not feel anything, I don't want to do that really, because I'm not really happy when I just shut everything off and get work done just for the sake of getting stuff done. I don't know. And also just to please the people who are higher up than me. And I totally get working hard, but in certain environments, the hard work feels very vain, and it feels exhausted, and it feels taken advantage of, if I may. Not necessarily on purpose. I think that's just kind of how it feels when you're in a big environment like that. So I'm dealing with a lot of that. I have for a long time, ever since I kind of started this job. But that's not every day that I feel overwhelmed by that. So sometimes I think I could do this for a long time. And then sometimes I think I don't want to do this for one more day, honestly. But it's just the industry I'm in. If I was in a different department or industry, it would feel less anxiety inducing. And this is the main thing that I go back and forth between is like, I do think that it's okay to not love your job 24/7. I think that's very normal, and most people don't. So to look for something that you do love 24/7 might be a little bit irrational, but some people find that. And if you want to, then go for it. I don't freaking know anything. But then on the other side, I do think that maybe the reason why I feel so unsettled and like wanting to get out is because I just don't want to be there anymore and work in that environment anymore. And that's okay. I believe maybe it's a societal thing that tells us, or these really powerful higher up people that say stuff like, you know, if you don't stay late, you don't really work that hard, or, you know, you should be the hardest worker, stay there late, do extra stuff, or you don't work hard enough. That type of a mindset being pushed down, which is just noise and annoying. But there is a kind of a lot of that, and just a lot of condescending tones in some work environments and just in that space that do fall on my ears. And then I get in my head like, well, maybe I just need to like man up and work harder. But then I remind myself that these people really don't care that much about me, and everyone is kind of in it for themselves. And I get it, but I don't really want to live like that. And if other people do, then they do, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm like in between, like I don't in between living like that and just choosing something else, transitioning to, you know, being a doula, but it's not as easy to just like stop getting paid and then try something out. It's a very high risk. Anyways, so that has been the inner workings of my day-to-day life at my job. I think some people, if they have a really good team and they feel settled, then it's like fun. Anyways, so those are the inner workings of my brain, the things that I've been really thinking about. But I've just been really frustrated, which is ironic because today also I was planning on talking about how amazing humans are and our potential is endless and we have so much potential and it's a beautiful thing that we can change and we can learn and our brains are so incredible. And now I feel tainted from just being annoyed. Now my emotion is frustrated, so it's really hard for me to see that. But I'm going to channel that and we're going to talk about it anyways because I do think it's important. And hopefully by the end of this episode, I can feel like, okay, I'm not as annoyed with people because I am a hypocrite. I know I am. So this weekend, my husband and I went and watched the movie Warfare. It's a movie based on this Navy SEAL team's memories. I don't know if it was all of them or some of them and their memories of it, but that's what the movie is based on. So it's a true story. And there's a lot of really specific details that really make you feel like you're there in the most horrifying way to where you want to be everywhere else but there. It was a really, really good movie. It was very hard to watch because it was very realistic and horrible and really showed the horrors of war as a lot of war movies do. But this one is specific to the war in Iraq. And this took place a while ago. So this wasn't like a recent situation. This was a while ago, maybe like 10 years ago or 10 plus years ago. My husband loves learning about war and understanding it. So, because I think it brings him comfort to know what's going on and to know what's out there. It does not really bring me comfort, but it brings him comfort. I think some guys are just like that. They're interested in that. He was telling me a lot of SEALs that were there at the time are saying that it's one of the most realistic movies to what warfare was actually like and is like when you're there. So I think that makes the movie that much better because you really get to experience and understand a little bit more about what they go through. And throughout the movie, other than sobbing and being disturbed and closing my eyes and fighting off a lot of OCD compulsions, like ruminating or trying to figure out what the exact right thing to do is, because one thing you learn is like nothing goes according to plan ever really in war and in life in general, and you don't really know exactly the exact right thing to do in every situation. But we're all just doing our best and trying our best to make the right moral decision. And it can be incredibly difficult because you're having to weigh multiple different things. So that's what was going on in my head. But the whole time I just kept thinking how incredible humans are, and specifically these men. They are so smart, and they are thinking and calculating so many different things in their head, probably 50 different things at once. They're so smart. They're so trained. They've done things so many times over and over again. They're so patient. They're so focused. It's really incredible what they can kind of unlock or what they can lock into, I guess, when they need to. And they are humans, but they feel like superhumans. I even feel so stupid talking about it because I don't know anything about war. I don't know anything about that stuff. I've lived a very cushy, peaceful, privileged life, and I am grateful for it all the time. And I acknowledge and I'm aware of why I get to live the way that I live. And I think sometimes it's hard to really figure out what to do with that. But then there are ways that you can give back to your country and also give back to troops. And there's things you can do and ways you can donate. And also you could just be a really good freaking person and good citizen. And what they're fighting for is freedom. So you can enjoy your freedoms, but also make sure other people have them as well and protect stuff like that. I also did something crazy this weekend. and flew in a little 4-person plane with one of my husband's friends who's a pilot. Which they call it the airport in the sky, and it was amazing and beautiful, but it was absolutely horrifying, and I had to like dig my hands into the chairs because I was horrified the whole time. But I did it and I was proud of myself even though I was scared the whole time. Even listening to the radio, them talk on the radio, like to the tower guy, and just the way that they talk and using all of these code names and terms and whatever. And just that we all work together for so many different things. Like most of us are working pretty well together. Doesn't feel like it in a corporate environment sometimes, but most of us, yeah, are working together. And that's pretty incredible. His friend was saying it's not as complicated as you think, the radio part and talking about what's happening, where getting directions, stuff like that. But it sounded complicated and it sounded really cool. I feel like I was watching a movie where they're talking over the radio as pilots. It just sounded really cool. I don't know why I was obsessed with that, but that's also a lot of what the movie was about. The Navy SEAL team was a lot of radio back and forth between the different teams, and I don't know what they call them, and I just think it just sounds cool, honestly. And just the fact that people fly and that we made planes, that we can fly, that people were brave enough to do that, which has allowed us to do pretty incredible things. So, yeah, I think humans are doing better than we think. And he was also sharing what they have to do in pilot school. And I was mortified because they have to do all these emergency procedures. But the fact that people can conquer their fears and that they can focus and get something done that they want to get done that aligns with their values, it's something they want to do. And so they bunker down, do it with fear or without fear, whatever. It's really incredible, and it was really inspiring to watch that movie and then just watch all these pilots and think about how all of that is coming together and how many people work together if you take a step back. I also feel like I've been kind of numb to what's going on in the world a little bit, just because there's so much noise with it that sometimes it's kind of hard to think for yourself or even think or know what exactly is happening. And I don't feel like I know exactly what is happening, and I feel really confused, but I don't think it's bad to have questions and try to search for answers. I know I'm just brain vomiting, but it's just going to be one of those episodes, and I apologize. All in all, there's a lot of really brave, faithful, good people who don't know everything and they don't know the best thing to do all the time, but they believe in something bigger and they surrender to something bigger and they try their best, and that just gives me a lot of hope. So I'm just trying to focus on both the good and the bad all together. Mostly the good, but sometimes obviously the most interesting things are the bad because they don't happen as often. I've really been trying to not give energy to that or even really let that take up a lot of mental space, because there's nothing I can do about a lot of it. But the things that I can do are be a good person, be good to my people in my life, and that does affect a lot of things. And there's nothing I can do to change global stuff right now. And I know some people have, and if that's like what you feel called to do, then, dream freaking big. I just feel like the best thing I can do is just take care of the people around me. I also just thought about how much potential we all have, and I don't think we understand how much potential we have sometimes, and we feel very limited because we have a very limited mindset, and our brain can't really even comprehend because we only know what we know. Nobody's run out of time and run out of potential. I think we all have potential forever, As I always say, I hope any of that made sense. The next thing I wanted to talk about was my favorite OCD tip. Why did I say it like that? My favorite OCD tip, which is waiting or procrastinating a compulsion. So I'm sure if you research OCD and you have it, you've heard this a bunch. But just to remind that this is an option if you have forgotten. If you are doing an exposure, even if you're just doing day-to-day stuff and a lot of things are just random exposures for you, and you have an urge to ruminate, you have an urge, like let's say you are making food and you have a knife in your hand and your family is right there and your brain starts going, oh my gosh, what if I lose control and I stab someone or whatever? You really want to put the knife down or say, I would never do that, or, any of those reassuring things or avoidance, any of that stuff, or trying to figure out, would I do that? Instead of just replying and saying, I'm not doing that. Nope. You can say, that's such a good point. That would be scary. I'm going to figure that out after dinner. And then after dinner, if it comes back, sometimes it doesn't come back, but if it comes back, you're like, okay, oh yeah, I said I was going to do this right now. How about let's do this when I'm getting ready for bed? Just keep saying that to yourself or to your brain, not in a compulsive way. When you go to bed, just keep saying it and keep procrastinating and keep procrastinating. And I used to ruminate probably all day. I'm not kidding. About a bunch of different things. Basically, whatever was in front of me, the worst thing you could do with the thing that was in front of you is what my brain would send me, and I would have to combat that all day. I watched this girl's YouTube video that talked about this technique of just waiting to compulse. Stopping completely felt impossible to me. It felt like I didn't even know how to function if I did do that. So instead, I tried this, and that was game changing for me, because instead of expecting myself to go from 100 to 0, it then became, let's go from 100 to 98. And then from 98 to 96, or 96 to 94. And that made me feel more confident when I was able to do that, to be like, okay, it's possible to push it off at least, to where now I can have some space in between when, these things pop up. And so that really was a huge game changer for me in my recovery. Was, okay, that's a great thing to think about. And that is really scary. I'm going to think about that in 20 minutes. Or, hey, remind me of that in 20 minutes. And then 20 minutes would go by, you get it. And also, just as a reminder, OCD recovery isn't can feel very messy, as most things in life are messy. Being a new parent is messy. Getting married can feel messy. Moving to a new state can feel messy. Day to day, your house can be messy. A lot of things just feel messy, and OCD recovery is definitely one of those things that can feel confusing and messy, and you can't find out what's real, what's not. You can't figure out what's OCD, what's not, what is actually you, what is your intuition, what is OCD. And that feels very confusing and can be overwhelming. And I think that's a way that sometimes that obsessive part of you that can't sit with uncertainty wants you to figure out exactly where every line is, so it's all configured perfectly. But just watch out for that as well, and respond the same way as you would with other OCD things, being like, I can't tell you for sure what is what, but I really want to be a good mom, so I'm going to act this way, and this is what I think. And maybe one day all of this will come crashing down and I'll ruin the relationship with my kid, and that'll be horrible, but it's the best I can do. So I'm just going to do this type of a thing. Okay, now let's do a Dear Abbey, and then we will end today's episode. Also, I probably feel this, we can do anything, we're amazing, because I was able to run 3 miles in a row, and I've never committed to doing that. I probably could have in the past, but I never committed to it. And then I've been running with my husband, and he is a better runner than me, as in he was a really good runner before. It's never been my strong suit. I was a swimmer. I like in the water more. He's been showing me how to run with correct form, which has helped me want to run more because I'm not in as much pain. And there's a certain part where you run the path, because we run outside. You run a certain path, and then there's one spot where you're kind of at mile 2, the end of mile 2, and you go uphill, this pretty long hill, pretty steep. So you're already tired. Well, I was already tired. And then you have to run uphill for a good amount of time. And my heart felt like it was going to explode the first time. So I kind of panicked, and I was like, okay, I have to walk the rest of the way. And then he finished the run. So I had to stop and walk, and I quit basically because I was scared. And then the second time we did it, which was only a couple of days later, we got to the hill part, and the whole time I was like, okay, you can't tell yourself you're not a runner, or you can't tell yourself I cannot do this. I'm not going to be strong enough to get past the hill and keep going. You have to tell yourself you can. You have to mentally prepare that it's going to feel horrible, and you're not going to want to keep going, and it's going to be easier to stop. But that's not the kind of person you want to be, who stops when it gets hard, and that will translate to the rest of your life, as dramatic as that sounds. on things that matter to you. I'm not going to tie that back into working a corporate job and making sure that you don't give up climbing the corporate ladder, because I don't care about that. By the time I got up the hill on that second run, I already had in my mind, I can do this and I'm not a quitter. It doesn't matter what has been in the past. Like, I'm not a quitter right now. And usually, you know, when you have quit a lot, your brain will send you all of that information being like, hey, remember when you quit this? Hey, remember when you stopped this, when you quit. And so that's what it keeps feeding, this idea that you are a quitter over and over and over again. I just get so sick of it. And it's like the shame voice that can totally control my life. And I get so fed up with it because I'm so sick of it just pushing me down and making me stop stuff and making me be who I don't want to be. And I was able to climb the full hill and keep running. And even though I felt the same as before, I thought I was going to pass out. I was seeing stars a little bit, but not to the point where I actually was going to pass out, but just like I couldn't really catch my breath. And I started to get panicky, but I told myself it's going to go away eventually. If you keep running, your body's going to get accustomed to this and you're going to be probably okay. Kept running, finished the whole 3-mile jog, including running up that long hill. And I felt so proud of myself because it was really hard. It took a long time for my heart rate to kind of come back down for the rest of the jog and to feel like I can breathe normally and like get a good breath in. But it felt good to push past what I thought I could do. And so if that happens just on a run, what else can that happen with? Like, what else can I do? So same with working out in the mornings. I go before work. I've been doing that for a while now, like a couple of months. And I've been the most consistent I have been since I started working at this job. I've been so consistent with waking up early because instead of thinking my way into it or out of it every day, I just go. It doesn't matter. I just go. And I just am excited to see how that helps me with other things in my life. Like when I feel emotionally frustrated or if I feel tired and I feel like just being grumpy and frustrated with my husband and, you know, things that I don't really actually want to do. I feel like the more I practice that, the more I can use that for in my relationship, in my life, in my spirituality, all of that stuff, to where it doesn't matter how I feel, this is what I am going to do. And I will process the feelings later if need be, but I'm not going to change my values based on my feelings right now in this heated moment. Okay, now let's do a Dear Abbey. Dear Abbey, this is less mental health oriented and more desperately needs some sister advice. I have been friends with this guy for over 2 years and we have been completely platonic throughout our relationship. I already know where this is going. Last year, he liked me for a couple months and then decided we were better off as friends. Okay, last year he liked me for a couple of months and then decided we were better off as friends. Okay, I'm curious to know the details of that. I was completely oblivious of these feelings though. Oh, I see. When some of my friends told me, I feel like I may have developed some feelings as well. I'm not sure if I like him because a year ago he liked me or if I'm genuinely in love with him. I also don't know if he would ever think of me in that way again. I also would be so sad if I lost him as a friend, and I feel like there is something there for us. Please let me know what you would do and don't be afraid to be brutally honest. Love you so much. Okay. I'm not sure how old you are because I think maybe this makes a difference, but if you still have a bunch of guy friends, I feel like you're probably pretty young. Maybe that's like that's just me. I have no friends basically, especially no guy friends. It's weird to me. That's like a foreign concept at this point in my life. But I used to have a lot of guy friends, and I know that's a red flag, whatever, but we just used to have a group, and a lot of them were guys and some of them were girls. So it was a normal group. Okay, so lay off. Also, my bio says retired pick-me girl. So, okay, couple things. One, just because he liked you and you just found out about it doesn't mean that's the only reason why you would feel some type of a way, but it definitely adds to the mix. Because if someone finds you attractive or if someone's interested in that way and you never knew, and then now you know, it's like then they were gazing at you at some point, you know, like they had the gaze towards you. And so that feels enticing. Us women like to be admired. So when we feel like that is the case, it feels pretty good. So that probably does add to the mix of thinking that you like him. Also, you said in love with him, which that's a different thing than liking him. I feel like you would know if you were in love with him. If you were really in love with somebody, you would know, especially at the beginning of a relationship. So you might like him. I don't know if you're in love with him, but again, I'm not you, so I don't know. This is something that I learned in my pick-me days. You can't keep every guy friend. Plus, once you get married or once you're dating someone seriously, you're not going to keep your guy friends that long. And it might be like an acquaintance, or when you see them, you're like, oh, you're excited to say hi and like catch up, but it's not going to be like you're hanging out with them all the time anyways. I think that if you're someone that wants to be in a relationship, you could try it out, try to let it happen naturally, but also you can initiate a little bit. If you feel like it's a chore to do that, then you don't like him. Because if you really, really liked him, you would be excited and you would really want to, instead of having to be like, well, maybe. But I think you have to let go of losing any guy friends if you're trying to date anybody. Because if you want a relationship, you're going to lose your guy friends anyways. It's kind of just inevitable. So what's one more, you know? You never know until you try. I'm all about trying, and if it doesn't work, then you know for sure. And then you can actually move on instead of wondering what if. To get super specific, you can just try to hang out with him one-on-one, see what the vibes are. You can give him some hints, see if he catches on. And if he's avoidant to it, then maybe that's your answer. If it does not come naturally, do not force it. The more love stories I've heard, the best advice is that if it does not happen naturally when you're with each other, after a while or after you're with them one-on-one and you're trying to like open yourself up, if it doesn't really happen naturally, then it just might be time to call it quits. Because most stories I hear of people falling in love, it just happens naturally. I hope that is helpful. Thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Dear Abbey. If you want to support the podcast, you can leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts for me. I would be very appreciative. I would be very grateful if you did that. If you want to hear me talk about something specific, you can message me on my Instagram, Dear Abbey __. You can also comment on Spotify and on YouTube if you want to leave a comment. Let me know how you liked this episode. If you hated it, I would understand. Thank you guys for listening, and I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Love you guys. Bye. 우회전 taking a ride to journey 눈치 보면서 들어가 할 때 찾아 나머진 바빠 개설레임 바꾸는 사람들 시간만 지나